guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I have swatches for you from the OPI Scotland collection. I did receive this collection from polishpick.com. In the description box below I will link the PolishPick site, I will link their Instagram page, I will link the OPI site and their Instagram page, and I will link my Instagram page where you can see more swatches of everything from this collection. I do also have their 2 exclusive shades to share with you, so we do have a total of 14 polishes to look at today, and let's go ahead and get started. So first we have Redheads Ahead, and this is the quintessential fire truck red cream that OPI loves to do. So here's our first coat of Redheads Ahead. So this is super opaque here on this first coat. I would say if you're not super picky, you could get away with 1 coat, but I can vaguely see my nail line here on this first coat, so I am going to go in for a second coat. Formula is very smooth and easy to work with, no running or pulling or staining. If OPI didn't have this formula down by this point, I would be slightly concerned, so it is very good. Here is our second coat, and that does cover completely in 2 coats. This one's also going to dry down nice and glossy all on its own. You will want a top coat to keep your manicure lasting, otherwise it wouldn't be necessary. And I do apologize if you can hear the baby in the room with me. So there is 2 coats. Up next we have Susie Needs a Locksmith, and this is a kind of burnt orange pumpkin-y terracotta cream. So here is our first coat of Susie Needs a Locksmith. So this one's also really opaque here on this first coat. I can make out my nail line though pretty easily, so I am going to go in for a second coat. Formula again is very smooth and easy to work with. I had no issues with running down the sides of my nails or pulling where the polish will gather down the sides because it is sliding down the side of your nails. So here is our second coat, and that does cover completely in 2 coats. This one is also going to dry nice and glossy all on its own. You will want that top coat just to keep your manicure lasting as long as possible. Nothing in here is going to dry textured or be difficult to remove, and I also experienced no kind of staining with this one. So there is 2 coats. Up next we have Things I've Seen in Aber-Green, and this is a super grayed out kind of army green cream. Here's our first coat of Things I've Seen in Arbor-Green. So this one is pretty opaque here on this first coat, a little bit streaky though, so I am going to go for a second coat. Formula is very smooth and easy to work with, no running, pulling, staining, anything of that sort. I do apologize that throughout this video a couple of nails have these cotton ball pieces stuck to them. I'm not really sure why I didn't pull them off, but they're not there in the photos because I did redo those photos. So here's our second coat, and that does cover completely in 2 coats. This one is also going to dry down nice and glossy all on its own. That top coat I would recommend though still to keep your manicure lasting and to protect it. Nothing in this one is going to dry textured or be difficult to remove either, so there is 2 coats. Up next we have OPI Grabs the Unicorn by the Horn, and this is a dusty turquoise cream. Here's our first coat of OPI Grabs the Unicorn by the Horn. So this one has more of a crelly consistency, and a crelly is somewhere in between a cream and a jelly formula. It's very smooth and easy to work with. It's just not as opaque and more squishy on the nails in my opinion. Here is our second coat though, and that does cover completely in 2 coats for me. This one is definitely borderline needing a 3rd coat though, so if your nail line is any more visible than mine is, this will probably require 3 coats, or if you worked in thinner coats. But this is going to dry glossy as well. So there is 2 coats. Up next we have Nessie Plays Hide and Seek. And this is a kind of royal blue base with a super strong blue to greeny shifting shimmer. Here's our first coat of Nessie Plays Hide and Seek. So this covers pretty well here on this first coat. I do have lighter spots and the color can get a bit deeper, so I am going to go ahead and go in for a second coat. But the formula on this is smooth and easy to apply. It's a little bit on the thinner side, so if you worked in too thick of a coat, you might experience some running or pooling where the sides are thicker than the middle. So here is our second coat, and that does cover completely in 2 coats for me. Depending on your preferences, you might want to go in for a third coat and deepen that color up a little bit more. This is all shimmer as opposed to a glitter, so nothing is going to dry textured and nothing is going to be difficult to remove, and I also had no kind of staining with this at all. So there is 2 coats. Up next we have Rub-a-Pub-Pub, and this is like a slate gray with a kiss of navy to it. Here's our first coat of Rub-a-Pub-Pub. So this does have the same formula as the green things I've seen in Arbor-Green, where it's a little bit streaky and patchy here on this first coat, but it is pretty opaque overall. You do just want to build up with a second coat to rid the streaky quality. Formula is good though, a little bit on the thinner side again, or if you worked too thickly it might run and pull on you, so just bear in mind. 2 nice thin coats will bring you to opacity either way. There's no reason you need to work in super thick coats. This one is also going to dry just like everything else so far, nice and glossy all on its own. That top coat I still would recommend for longevity purposes. So there is 2 coats. Up next we have Nice Set of Pipes, and this is a blurply cream that leans more towards the side of purple, and it also has like a undertone of a gray as well, like a nice dusty quality to it. Here's our first coat of Nice Set of Pipes. So this covers really well here on this first coat. I dare say this is a 1-coater if I didn't want to apply a second coat. If you go into this knowing like, hey, this can get opaque in 1 coat, you can wear this just fine in 1 coat. Work a little bit thicker and a little bit more carefully. I am showing you 2 coats today. I don't necessarily think that was necessary. So anyway, this is opaque in 2 coats. It'll dry decently glossy on its own. I didn't have any kind of staining with this, but this is definitely a color I would recommend doubling up on that base coat for. So there is 2 coats. Up next we have Boys Be Thistling At Me, and this is a ox bloody leaning shimmery purple with brown in it. All these colors are really difficult to describe, but they are all nice and original in my collection. Here is our first coat of Boys Be Thistle-ing At Me. This one is also really opaque here on this first coat. This is another one that, depending on your application, you could probably get away with just 1 coat of this. Once again, I am going to go in for a second coat, as this was the first time I used it painting my nails, so I didn't realize just how opaque it was. If I worked a little bit thicker and a little bit more carefully, this could probably get away with 1 coat. Here is our second coat, and that does cover completely in 2 coats. Formula is again smooth and easy to apply. You do have some brush strokes as it's wet. Those do mostly go away as it dries. This one's also going to dry down a little bit dull, so you will want a glossy top coat to finish that off if you don't like that finish. And nothing's going to dry textured or be difficult to remove in here. So there is 2 coats. Up next we have Good Girls Gone Plaid, and this is a deep eggplant purple cream. Here is our first coat of Good Girls Gone Plaid. So this is pretty doggone opaque on this first coat. I do have some lighter spots, so I am going to continue to build this up with the second coat. Formula is smooth and easy to apply. This one's also a little bit on the thinner side though, where it might run and pull if you do too thick of a coat. I would just recommend going in for nice thin coats if possible. Here's our second coat, and that does build up to opacity on 2 coats. This is also one that in certain lightings could definitely be mistaken for black instead of purple. This one is going to dry pretty glossy on its own. You will want that top coat still for longevity purposes. So there's 2 coats. Up next we have Clash of the Tartans, and this is a berry pinky leaning purple shade, and it is a shimmer. Here's our first coat of Clash of the Tartans. So this one does cover completely in one coat. It does dry down to a matte finish though, so I wanted to show what 2 coats looks like anyway to even out any spots that might have gotten thicker in some areas and look, you know, funky like a matte can do. Formula is smooth, it's not too thick. Some mattes can get pretty thick on you. This one is not. It does dry down quick, but it's not too quick to work with. It is opaque in 1 to 2 coats. This one does look beautiful, glossy or matte. I also had no kind of staining. Nothing's going to dry textured and nothing is going to be difficult to remove. So there is 2 coats. Up next we have You Got That Glas-Glow, and this is a putty shade cream. So here's our first coat of You've Got That Glas-Glow. This covers surprisingly well for the color that it is. Formula is very good. No running or pooling on this one, no staining, a very nice smooth application. I do still have some streaks and a little bit of nail line showing, but that is not to be unexpected from a color like this. So here is our second coat, and that does cover completely in 2 coats. Depending on your application though, you might need a 3rd coat of this one. This is also going to dry nice and glossy all on its own. You will want a glossy top coat to protect your manicure and keep it lasting as long as possible though. So there is 2 coats. Oh. And lastly, from the core collection, we have Edinburgh-er Tatties, and this is your standard neutral peachy shade. Here's our first coat of Edinburgh-er Tatties, which I think I'm starting to finally get saying that name down. This is pretty opaque here on this first coat. It's not completely opaque, so I am going to go in for a 2nd coat, but I was definitely surprised at the coverage I got on this. Formula is very smooth and easy to work with. I had no running or pulling or staining with this one either. Very smooth formula. So here is our 2nd coat, and that does cover completely in 2 coats for me. This one is another one that, depending on your application and your preference, you might need a 3rd coat. This is also going to dry nice and glossy all on its own. You will want a top coat again to protect your manicure, but otherwise it's not necessary if you have to paint and go. So there is 2 coats. And then on to the 2 exclusives. We have A Little Gilt Under the Kilt, and this is a deep royally red shade with a shimmer. And here's our first coat of A Little Gilt Under the Kilt. So this one is a little bit sheer on this first coat. It is covering nice and evenly though. Formula is very smooth and easy to work with. This is a little bit on the thinner side, where again, I feel like if you worked too thickly, you might end up with some thicker sides and thinner tops. So just bear that in mind. So here is our 2nd coat, and that does cover completely in 2 coats for me. This one is also going to dry down pretty dull, so you will want a glossy top coat to finish it off. Nothing in here is going to dry textured though, and nothing in here is going to be difficult to remove, and Cooper says hello. So there is 2 coats. And lastly for today, we have Nailed It by a Royal Mile, and this is a Royal Blurple shimmer shade. And here's our first coat of Nailed It by a Royal Mile. And this one is another one that's completely opaque in 1 coat, but it does dry down to a matte finish. So I do like to, with my matte drying polishes, go in for a secure 2nd coat either way, just because sometimes it can dry a little bit uneven. Formula is smooth and easy to apply, a little bit on the thicker side, not unusual for a matte. So here's our second coat, and that does cover completely in 2 coats for me. Obviously this one's going to dry down matte. If you don't like that, it does look absolutely beautiful with a glossy top coat as well. I didn't experience any kind of staining with this one, but it is definitely in the running to being a stainer, so I would double up on base coat. So there is 2 coats. So this collection is kind of right up my alley as far as shades go, so I do have a lot of favorites to share with you, but bear in mind this is a fall collection, so I'm basing it off the idea of fall. So my first favorite would be Susie Needs a Locksmith. It's like a nice terracotta-y orange shade. Absolute perfection for the fall time. Very, very beautiful color. I love those kind of burnt orange shades in general, so that's definitely up on the top of my list for favorites. The next one would be Pub, and it's this like dark blue gray shade. I love these kind of colors, like where it's one color, so I would primarily say this was a gray, but it's got a touch of blue to it and it makes it totally original in my collection, so I do love this one. The next one would be Nessie Plays Hide and Seek. And I love this deep blue, but it's got the green to like teal shimmer to it and then a gold flash. Something I don't have in my collection from OPI. Really, really like this one. And then the last one would be things I've seen in Arbor-Green. Obviously I had to pick this one. It's kind of that ugly pretty shade, and it also has that quality to it that I was just talking about, where it's like a primarily gray polish and then it has like a hint of an olive to it. I really, really enjoy this. So these were my 4 picks from the collection. I do highly, highly recommend the entire collection though. The only thing that I wish this collection had was a mustard yellow. My only complaint. The rest of them, all the polishes themselves are fantastic. And guys, that is it. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of this collection. Let me know if you plan on picking any of them up, and let me know what your favorite was. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe if you'd like to see more from me, and I will talk to you again next time.